So you see the headlines, right? Politicians are locked in these debates, assigning blame for, devastating events like those we've seen recently in Texas. And while all that's happening, you might just be sitting there asking yourself, okay, but how do I actually keep my own family safe? Today, we are really trying to cut through all that noise.
Yeah.
We want to bring you KaiZen's 5-step non-political action plan. This isn't about the headlines at all. It's about empowering you, giving you a sense of control and confidence, really, no matter what external events unfold.
That's exactly it. That's precisely our mission today. In this deep dive, we're focusing really intensely on the realities of disaster preparedness. Our foundational source material, it comes directly from lessons learned right there in Texas. We're looking specifically at the severe weather events like 2021's Winter Storm Uri and also the more recent deadly flash floods. Our goal here is, well, it's pretty clear. We want to extract practical, actionable insights from these real-world experiences and then transform them into simple, powerful steps you can take, like right now, today, to protect your loved ones. This truly isn't about politics. It's about genuine preparedness and, building resilience within your own life.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. It really feels like every single time a major disaster hits, the immediate aftermath. It isn't just about relief efforts, is it? It seems to shift so quickly into this flurry of finger-pointing and assigning blame.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost like a knee-jerk reaction,
Yeah.
but one that can feel incredibly unproductive, especially for those directly impacted, right?
Totally unproductive.
It absolutely is, and we saw this dynamic play out very acutely after both the devastating 2021 Texas winter storm and, more recently with the flash floods. This tendency to assign blame, while it's maybe a natural human response to trauma, and look, accountability is necessary.
Sure.
It can unfortunately draw significant energy away from practical, immediate action. Just think about Winter Storm Uri back in 2021. The operator of Texas's energy grid, ERCOT, they faced intense criticism.
That was pressure, yeah.
Immense. Lawsuits were filed against ERCOT and major energy companies, too. The allegations were that warnings about the grid's inherent weaknesses, they were repeatedly ignored for years, maybe even decades, before the storm actually hit.
Decades, wow.
Yeah, and we learned that the Public Utility Commission of Texas even set wholesale electricity prices to an astronomical $9,000 per megawatt hour.
9,000.
9,000, supposedly to incentivize generation, but the result was that Texans collectively faced something like $37.7 billion in electric bills.
Oh.
It was a crisis that unfolded with really complex layers, from grid design right through to regulatory decisions.
And, okay, so despite all that and the legislative steps they took afterwards to, winterize generators and power plants. Yeah. ERCOT itself, didn't they put out a report in December 2021 saying that a similar storm still had an 80% chance of causing rolling blackouts?
That's exactly right. An 80% likelihood.
It really does feel like we're caught in this repeating cycle of vulnerability then.
It's a compelling point, and, this pattern of immediate blame and then these long-term kind of slow-moving solutions, it definitely repeated itself with the recent floods. There were explicit attempts to place blame on various entities. Some reports, they indicated sharp criticism of the National Weather Service, the NWS, accusing them of not forecasting conditions accurately enough. Some people even tried to attribute this to alleged staffing cuts under a previous administration.
Right, the political angle again.
Exactly. And then conversely, you had others vehemently denying these links, asserting that no, the NWS did its job effectively, and that blaming, say, the president for the flood was, I think one source called it malicious or even disgusting.
Wow.
So the debate itself just became its own storm, really overshadowing the human impact on the ground.
And it wasn't just the big state or federal agencies caught in the crossfire. I remember reading local officials face scrutiny too, right? Kerr County specifically.
Yes, indeed. The situation in Kerr County, it illustrates this perfectly, but at the local level. Local officials there, they were heavily criticized because reports stated they'd been given $10 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds, ARPA funds.
Okay, ARPA funds.
Back in 2021, and those funds were explicitly intended for storm-related infrastructure.
Storms, right.
Exactly. But the report said those funds were actually allocated to other public safety projects, county employee raises, even a new walking path.
A walking path instead of flood infrastructure.
That's what the reports claimed. And what's particularly sort of illuminating here is that some local officials, they even tried to shift blame back onto the voters. They cited a general reluctance, they said, to pay for these kinds of measures, claiming there was little public support for, say, a flood warning system.
That's revealing.
It really highlights a subtle but critical element, right? The challenge of actually gaining public support and funding for preventative measures before a disaster strikes.
So basically, it's that not in my backyard or maybe not with my tax dollars mentality, even when the risks are pretty clear. That's a concerning dynamic. And then there were also allegations against FEMA, too.
That's right. On top of all that, you had allegations against FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. New policies reportedly delayed search and rescue deployments by 72 hours.
72 hours. That's critical time.
Crucial time. Also, delays in requests for vital aerial imagery and reports of longer wait times at federal call centers. This constant back and forth, it just perfectly illustrates how these political debates, I mean, they're part of accountability discussion, sure,
Right.
but they can unfortunately overshadow the immediate personal need for practical preparedness. It's just a significant distraction.
Yeah. It's really striking how much energy gets consumed in this blame game. It completely diverts our focus from what truly matters in that moment, doesn't it? Which is making communities and, our own families more resilient on a personal level. It feels like a huge distraction from the concrete, actionable steps people need.
That's the essential outcome we're trying to promote here, fostering genuine community resilience in daily living. Instead of feeling overwhelmed or, frankly, powerless listening to all these political discussions, the KaiZen approach, it explicitly refocuses our energy. It refocuses on what you can control right now.
Okay.
It's all about empowering individuals and families to take proactive steps, regardless of the external political dynamics or, who's pointing fingers where. It allows you to transform that anxiety into action.
Okay, that makes sense. That brings us nicely to Kaizen Step 1, the Kaizen Audit, your immediate readiness checklist. This sounds incredibly practical, something anyone can actually start doing right away. What's the core concept here?
The core concept of the Kaizen audit, it's profoundly impactful, but really in its simplicity. It involves checking 3 fundamental things today that are so often overlooked until it's, well, far too late. Think of it as your absolute minimum immediate readiness checklist. This isn't about, building a full-scale bunker or anything like that.
Right, not some huge prepper thing.
Exactly. It's about covering the most common and, frankly, critical vulnerabilities that emerge right in the immediate aftermath of a widespread disaster.
And why these 3 specific things? Water, food, power. Are they truly the absolute essentials?
They really are. They're the absolute essentials for basic survival and just maintaining a degree of comfort when typical infrastructure fails. Think about it. When a disaster hits, your energy, your focus needs to be entirely on keeping your family safe, right? Not scrambling around trying to find basic necessities. These items, water, food, power, they address the most immediate and widespread failures that occur in large-scale emergencies. Things like power outages, water supply disruptions, limited access to food. If you have these 3 covered, you've significantly reduced your initial stress and vulnerability.
Okay, let's start with key item 1, water. Why is having a reliable water supply so incredibly critical? And what do the experiences in Texas really teach us about its importance?
Well, water isn't just critical, it's completely non-negotiable for survival. It's that basic. During the 2021 Winter Storm Uri, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of residents across Texas, they lost water service for multiple days.
Just no water coming out of the tap.
None at all. And beyond that, many people faced boil water notices, even if their pipes still technically delivered water. That's because pressure drops in the municipal systems, they can lead to contamination, so the water wasn't safe to drink directly. Plus, you had broken pipes and leaks further depleting water storage all across the state. It just made clean, potable water incredibly scarce. It was a genuine public health crisis. The infrastructure itself can fail in ways you might not expect.
So what's the actionable advice then? For our listeners today, how can they ensure they're prepared on the waterfront?
Okay, the key is to ensure you have enough potable water for every single family member for a minimum of 3 days. The general guideline people talk about is 1 gallon per person per day. That's mostly for drinking and basic sanitation.
1 gallon per person per day, minimum 3 days.
Minimum 3 days. But you also need to factor in additional water for basic hygiene, maybe some sanitation needs, even a little bit of cooking if you're able to. And don't just think bottled water, although that's great. If you have a standard water heater, that tank often stores, 40, 50 gallons of clean water you could potentially access.
Oh, interesting. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, bathtubs can be filled right before a storm hits if you have warning. That gives you a large volume for flushing or washing. And just remember to rotate your stored water maybe every 6 months or so to keep it fresh.
Good tip.
And don't forget, too, about just managing personal hygiene without running water. Think about things like wet wipes, hand sanitizer. Even having a sturdy bucket set aside for emergency toilet facilities can make a huge difference in comfort and, importantly, preventing illness.
That's a really clear starting point.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to key item 2, cook-free food. Again, how did Texas highlight the immense importance of having food that needs no cooking or refrigeration?
Well, during Winter Storm Uri, millions of Texans were without power for days on end. That made traditional cooking just impossible for most people.
Right, no stove, no microwave.
Exactly. Grocery stores were closed, or if they were open, shelves emptied incredibly quickly. Delivery services just ground to a halt because the roads were impassable. Food insecurity became a major issue. We saw food banks reporting absolutely record-level distributions. And what's really telling is that even, relatively affluent communities, people accustomed to easy access to food, they suddenly found themselves without options. The insight here isn't just about the power being out, it's about the disruption of the entire food supply chain and the sheer difficulty of sourcing anything when transportation and commerce are basically paralyzed.
So what type of food should we be thinking about stocking up on for this kind of scenario? What does cook-free really mean in practice?
It means stocking non-perishable food that requires absolutely zero cooking or refrigeration. Think canned goods, but specifically ones with pop tops if you might not have a can opener easily available, or if power is out.
Ah, good point, the pop tops.
Yeah. Canned fruits, vegetables, beans, tuna, chicken. Those are all great. Energy bars, dried fruits, nuts, peanut butter are also excellent choices. They're calorie dense, they have a very long shelf life. And maybe don't overlook the psychological aspect either. Having a few comfort foods or treats that don't require preparation, maybe some chocolate or hard candies, can be a huge morale booster in a really stressful situation.
That's a good point.
And just remember to factor in any specific dietary needs or allergies for family members as well. Critical.
Absolutely. Okay, and finally, key item 3, batteries backup power. Power outages seem to be just a recurring devastating theme in these Texas events.
Oh, absolutely. Millions lost power during Winter Storm Uri. The outages spanned most of the state from, I think it was February 15th to the 18th back in 2021. And this wasn't just, an inconvenience. It meant no heat and freezing temperatures.
Right. Dangerous.
Extremely dangerous. No lights in the dark, and critically, no way to charge phones for communication or information. We know some residents, particularly those with limited means, they endured the absolute brunt of the storm's impacts, lacking heat and electricity for days. It led to tragic outcomes. And even hospitals, other critical facilities, suffered significant power loss, which is truly alarming. It just underscores how fragile our modern reliance on electricity can really be.
So what's the concrete action listeners can take then? How do we prepare for this power vulnerability on a basic level?
Okay, first, have fresh batteries for flashlights, and plenty of them. Don't just have one set.
Multiple sets, yeah.
Multiple sets. A hand crank or battery-powered radio is essential for accessing vital information when cell towers might be down or overloaded. And portable power banks for phones are pretty much a must-have these days. Keep them charged up regularly.
Right, don't let them sit empty in a drawer.
Exactly. If you have a vehicle, a car charger can be an absolute lifeline for keeping a phone going. The key is really to have multiple ways to generate light, receive emergency broadcasts, and maintain some communication capability, even if it's just for short bursts. And also, critically, consider where any essential medical devices are powered, if that applies to your family, and have a specific plan for those.
Okay, so we've covered water, food, power. Now, I can almost hear some listeners thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but isn't all this preparation? Isn't it too complicated or too expensive? Can KaiZen address that common objection? Because I feel like it's a huge psychological barrier for a lot of people.
That's a really common and honestly understandable concern, and it often leads to what psychologists call normalcy bias.
Normalcy bias.
Yeah, it's that psychological tendency we all have to believe things will just continue as they always have, even when we see warnings. This bias, it makes us resistant to preparing for what feels like an extreme or maybe unlikely event. We think, oh, that won't happen here, or it won't be that bad.
Right, it hasn't happened yet.
Precisely. But here's the truth about this first step, the KaiZen audit. These initial steps are deliberately designed to be simple, low cost, and immediately valuable. You don't need to build a bunker, you don't need to spend a fortune, a few gallons of water, maybe some extra canned goods picked up during your regular grocery run, a pack of batteries. These can be acquired for very little money, often just a few dollars here and there, and they make an immediate, tangible difference in your readiness.
So it's not about doing everything at
Not
once.
at all. The goal isn't perfection or achieving immediate total self-sufficiency. It's about progress. Start with one item this week, maybe grab extra water, then add another item next week, maybe some canned beans. It's about small, consistent steps that build confidence and preparedness over time. Don't let the idea of perfect preparation stop you from making any preparation at all. Just start.
That makes a lot of sense. Start small. Build momentum. Okay, that leads us naturally to Kaizen step 2. Building your family communications plan. This feels absolutely vital. How will your family actually connect if cell networks are down, or worse, if you get separated during an emergency?
This is such a crucial step, and it's one that many people overlook precisely because we've become so incredibly reliant on our cell phones working all the time.
Yeah, we just assume they'll work.
We do, but during widespread emergencies, cellular networks can become overloaded almost instantly, or they can fail entirely due to damage or power loss, and this impacts everyone. For example, during Winter Storm Uri, we heard reports that many people with disabilities found their phones just didn't work at all, making it impossible for them to call for help or even access emergency alerts being sent out. And more recently, during those floods in Kerr County, inconsistent cell service in the rural areas, it made it incredibly difficult for first responders to communicate with each other, let alone for affected individuals to reach loved ones. So a pre-established family communication plan isn't just, a nice-to-have convenience. It's your essential lifeline when modern tech fails you.
Okay, so what are the key elements then? What makes a robust communication plan that families should prioritize putting together?
Okay, first you need to designate a primary and a secondary meeting point. Choose a local, recognizable, safe place where family members can physically meet if you get separated and you can't return home.
Like a library or a park?
Could be a specific landmark, maybe a trusted neighbor's house if they're part of your plan, a local park, a community center. But also have a secondary one, just in case the first choice is inaccessible for some reason. Maybe it's blocked by flooding or damage. And think about different scenarios. If you commute, maybe plan one point near work and one near home or school.
Okay, primary and secondary meeting points.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, what about this idea of an out-of-state contact? I've heard that advice before, but it always feels a little counterintuitive when the emergency is right here, local.
Yeah, it does seem counterintuitive, but it's actually incredibly smart, and there's a technical reason behind it. During local disasters, the cell towers in the immediate vicinity, they often get completely overwhelmed with traffic, or they might be physically damaged.
Makes sense.
However, the long-distance lines and networks outside the affected area are often still operational. So, paradoxically, it's often easier to make a long-distance call out of the disaster zone to a family member or friend hundreds of miles away than it is to call someone just down the street. Ah, okay, I see. The local network is jammed, but the long-distance network might be fine.
Exactly. So everyone in the family needs to know this person's name and number. Ideally, memorize it, but at least have it written down on a waterproof card. Put it in your wallet, your purse, your go bag. This designated out-of-state contact, they basically act as a central message hub for your family. Everyone checks in with them.
That makes perfect sense when you explain the network dynamics like that. Okay, what else should be part of this family communication plan?
Definitely emphasize the importance of knowing how to use text messages, SMS, even if you primarily use calls or messaging apps. Text messages use significantly less bandwidth than voice calls and can often sneak through when voice calls are impossible due to network congestion.
Right, short bursts of data. Exactly. Keep text short and to the point. Safe. At library meeting point, okay, something like that. Also, social media can be a powerful tool, but you need to use it cautiously. Official local authorities, police, fire, emergency management, they often use platforms like Facebook and Twitter or their own websites and blogs for quick updates and to share critical information.
So follow the official sources.
Know which official channels to follow in advance. Like Houston's emergency website, houstonemergency.org, that provides links to their official social media channels. That can be a crucial source of verified information when other channels are down. Just be really careful to verify sources and avoid relying on, rumors or unverified posts that fly around during emergencies.
Stick to the officials. Good advice. Now, this raises a really important question, especially for parents listening. How do we talk to our children about this plan without causing undue fear or anxiety? It's one thing for us as adults to understand the necessity, but kids can easily get scared by talk of disasters and emergencies.
That's a really thoughtful and critical question. It's so important to handle this correctly with children. The key is to frame it not as some scary what-if scenario or like a doomsday discussion. Instead, frame it as your family's game plan, or maybe like a secret mission to stay safe and connected no matter what surprises life throws your way.
I like that game plan or secret mission.
Exactly. Make it empowering, not frightening. You can even turn it into a fun activity. Maybe draw maps together, showing the routes to your designated meeting points. Practice sending short, clear check-in text messages. You could even do a sort of scavenger hunt around the house to find the items for your emergency kit or go bag. Emphasize that it's about being prepared and knowing what to do, which actually helps everyone feel more in control, including the kids.
So it teaches them responsibility, too.
It does. It empowers them to be part of the solution rather than just passively experiencing scary circumstances. This kind of proactive approach builds confidence and competence, not fear.
I love that idea of the game plan. It really shifts the whole perspective, doesn't it? From being a potential victim to being an empowered participant in your own safety. Okay, now let's talk about KaiZen Step 3, the golden neighbor community as first responders. What's the core concept behind this step, and why is it so vital?
The core concept here is simple, but it's profoundly powerful in practice. Your immediate community, meaning your neighbors, they're often the very first responders in any crisis.
Yeah.
While government aid, like from FEMA or state agencies, is absolutely vital and necessary in longer term,
Right.
it almost always takes time to mobilize and reach everyone, especially when a disaster is widespread. This was actually highlighted really clearly in the official after-action review for Winter Storm Uri. It pointed to community resilience and community support as key successes.
Interesting. The official report noted that.
It did. It stated that community groups, neighbors helping neighbors, local businesses stepping up, they demonstrated incredible resilience right in the immediate aftermath, often well before formal government aid could fully arrive and deploy. There's often this crucial, maybe 72-hour gap before outside help can really ramp up effectively. Your neighbors fill that gap.
So the actionable advice then is simply to know your neighbors. That sounds almost too simple, but I can definitely see how it plays out in a crisis situation.
It is simple, but it's incredibly impactful. Just knowing the names and maybe having the phone numbers of at least two neighbors, maybe one on each side or across the street, can make an enormous difference in an emergency. Think about it logically. Who is going to check on you first if you're stuck, if your power's out, if you need help lifting something, or if you run out of a crucial supply?
Yeah, it's not going to be FEMA knocking on your door in the first hour.
Exactly. It's likely going to be the person next door or the family across the street. During that 2021 storm, we saw local churches, community centers, other local organizations immediately opening warming stations. They put out calls for donations of blankets and food. Several mutual aid groups, especially in cities like Houston and Austin, they mobilized incredibly quickly, delivering supplies directly to those in need, often operating completely outside traditional government structures.
We also saw a lot of incredible generosity from, public figures and celebrities during that time, didn't we? Which also kind of speaks to that community-driven, bottom-up response.
Yes, absolutely. It was heartening to see. Celebrities like Beyoncé and Reese Witherspoon, they teamed up with companies to provide monetary relief. They donated personally. They used their social media platforms to share donation links, raising both relief funds and awareness. And Matthew McConaughey and his wife Camila Alice McConaughey, they organized that We're Texas virtual benefit concert.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It raised over $7.7 million to support Texans affected by the storm. That's significant grassroots fundraising. And think about the food banks. The San Antonio Food Bank, the East Texas Food Bank, they saw absolutely record levels of food distribution immediately after the storm. It just illustrates how critical those local community resources truly are when official supply chains are completely disrupted. It was a massive, decentralized community effort.
And it wasn't just financial support either, right? It was practical, hands-on support on the ground that really demonstrated this golden neighbor concept in action.
Exactly right. We saw community groups organizing drivers who had four-wheel drive vehicles. These folks volunteered to transport vulnerable individuals to shelters. They delivered essential supplies like water and medicine, navigating treacherous icy roads. They could do this because they knew their local areas intimately and were motivated by seeing the direct need of their neighbors. This kind of grassroots support, it fills critical gaps when large-scale government aid is still being marshaled and organized, which always takes time.
Are there any sort of formal community preparedness initiatives that people can maybe get involved with to further strengthen these local networks, beyond just saying hi to your neighbor?
There absolutely are, and I highly recommend folks look into them if they're interested in taking that next step. A fantastic example is the Community Emergency Response Team program, usually called CERT, C-E-R-T.
That's true. Okay.
Many communities offer this training. It teaches residents basic disaster response skills, things like light fire suppression, basic search and rescue techniques, disaster first aid, and medical triage. It truly empowers neighbors to safely support each other in that critical window until professional first responders like fire and police can arrive. And remember that URI after-action report observation. It noted that even established nonprofit organizations often lacked sufficient logistical capacity in the initial 72 hours.
Right. They were overwhelmed too.
Exactly. Which further underscores the need for strong, prepared community networks and individual preparedness to bridge that immediate gap. It's really about building a more self-reliant neighborhood where everyone understands they might have a role to play.
That makes perfect sense. Building resilience block by block. Okay, this brings us to KaiZen Step 4. Simple survival skills. Knowledge is your portable asset. That's a powerful statement because it's something you can carry with you always, no matter what.
It truly is. Beyond just physical supplies, which are crucial, knowledge is perhaps the single most valuable asset you can acquire for preparedness. It doesn't take up any physical space in your go bag, it weighs absolutely nothing, and importantly, no one can take it away from you.
Yeah.
When disaster strikes and all those modern conveniences we rely on suddenly disappear, power, running water, internet, maybe even safe roads, these basic survival skills become invaluable. They empower you to problem solve, to adapt when traditional systems fail. They give you a profound sense of self-reliance and capability.
So what kind of skills are we talking about here? And how can someone start acquiring them without feeling, completely overwhelmed by the idea of becoming a survival expert overnight?
Right, it's not about becoming Bear Grylls in a weekend. The actionable advice here is really manageable. Commit to learning just one simple skill per month. Start small, build momentum, make it achievable. For example, let's talk about basic water filtration and purification.
Okay.
The widespread loss of water service and those boil water notices in Texas in 2021, they starkly underline how important it is to be able to make questionable water safe to drink. So, 1 month, learn how to effectively boil water for purification. It sounds simple, but know the details. Bring it to a rolling boil for at least 1 full minute, longer at higher altitudes.
1 minute rolling boil. Got it.
Another month, research how to use a simple portable water filter. Things like a Life Straw or a Sawyer filter are relatively inexpensive and effective. Or even learn about basic DIY methods using layers of cloth and maybe sand or charcoal as a preliminary step to remove large particulates before you boil or use chemical purification tablets. Just understanding the principles of how to create drinkable water from uncertain sources is a fundamental, potentially life-saving skill.
That's incredibly practical and definitely feels manageable, 1 skill a month. What other skills might fall into this category?
Minor first aid is another absolutely crucial one. We talked about those tragic stories during Winter Storm Uri, people struggling with medication access, needing refrigeration for things like insulin, or having to ration their limited supply.
Right, and difficulty getting to doctors or hospitals.
Exactly. Immense difficulties getting to medical facilities due to impassable roads or just lack of transportation. And we also saw carbon monoxide poisoning become a significant health concern as people tried to warm their homes using unsafe methods like indoor grills or generators.
Oh, terrible.
So, knowing how to properly treat small cuts and scrapes to prevent infection, how to manage basic hygiene when water is scarce, how to recognize and provide initial care for things like hypothermia or dehydration, or even just providing basic comfort measures, these skills can genuinely be life-saving when professional medical help is delayed or completely unavailable. It's about being able to manage the basic health needs within your own household for a period.
And just understanding severe weather terminology, that seems like a basic, but maybe often overlooked skill that could directly inform your actions in the moment.
Absolutely. It's foundational knowledge. The Ready Houston checklist, for example, emphasizes this. Knowing the difference between a watch and a warning is critical. A tropical storm watch means conditions, winds 39-73 miles per hour, are possible within 48 hours.
Possible.
A tropical storm warning means those conditions are expected within 36 hours. That difference dictates whether you have time to prepare versus needing to take immediate shelter or evacuate.
Big difference in urgency.
Huge difference. Same logic applies to hurricane watch versus hurricane warning for winds 74-mile-per-hour or greater. And for freezing temperatures, remember those widely promoted 4 Ps?
Remind us.
People, pets, pipes, and plants. People need to dress in layers to prevent hypothermia. Pets should be brought inside or provided warm shelter. Pipes, especially outside ones or those in unheated areas like attics or crawl spaces, should be insulated or allowed to drip slowly. And sensitive plants might need to be covered or brought inside. These simple memory aids translate directly into protective actions you can take.
People, pets, pipes, plants. Easy to remember. And for tornadoes, there's that simple, memorable rule that can literally save lives, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. The go down, hold on advice is paramount for tornado safety. Get low. Go to an interior room like a bathroom or closet without windows on the lowest floor of your home and hold on to something sturdy if you can. And a crucial tool for all severe weather events, one that every household really should have, is a battery-operated NOAA weather radio.
Oh, no.
This radio receives broadcasts directly from the National Weather Service. It provides the latest, most accurate alerts and information, which can be absolutely invaluable when cell phone networks or internet services are down or overloaded. It's a direct lifeline to official warnings.
This really ties into that broader concept you mentioned, the knowledge gap in disasters. We saw with the recent floods, didn't we, that even if people got the warnings, understanding what those conditions actually mean for their specific location is the key. It's not just about getting the alert, but interpreting it correctly.
That's a critical point, yes. Texas has that region known as Flash Flood Alley. It's a unique geography where warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico dumps torrential rain onto relatively thin soils overlying limestone bedrock. This combination leads to incredibly rapid runoff and sudden, violent flash floods. Dry creeks can become raging rivers in literally minutes. So hydrologists are now recommending the use of hydrologic forecasts. These actually translate expected rainfall directly into likely river levels or potential flood depths in specific areas, rather than just giving inches of rain expected.
So it's more specific, more actionable.
Much more actionable. It underscores that merely getting an official warning isn't always enough. You need to understand what that warning truly implies for your specific street, your neighborhood, and know how to react based on that localized knowledge. It's about converting that raw weather information into actionable understanding based on your environment.
That's a really powerful distinction. Okay, let's move on to the final step, KaiZen Step 5. The 10-minute go bag your emergency grab and go. Now, this sounds far less like that, doomsday prepper's bunker we talked about, and much more like practical, immediate preparation that anyone can manage.
Exactly right. This isn't about building some kind of survivalist compound or hoarding supplies to last for years. Not at all. It's simply about preparing a small, manageable bag, maybe a backpack or a sturdy tote bag, that can get you and your family through the crucial initial hours or maybe days of an unexpected evacuation. The whole goal is to make it quick, easy, and ready at a moment's notice, so you can literally just grab it and go without thinking, because in a real emergency, every single second can count.
So why is having a go bag considered so essential? And how quickly can emergencies actually escalate to the point where you need one?
Emergencies can strike with really surprising speed, forcing rapid evacuation orders or just making it unsafe to stay. Think about hurricane evacuations along the Texas coast. Those are based on predicted storm surge and wind damage, and they identify specific zones, zip zone, coastal, ABC, that need to evacuate, sometimes with very little notice.
Right, the zones tell you if you need to leave.
Exactly. Or consider flash floods like we just discussed. They can make roads completely impassable in minutes, literally creating islands of trapped land and cutting you off from escape routes. You might have only minutes, not hours, to leave your home safely. A pre-prepared go bag ensures you have your absolute essentials with you, even if you can't get back home for several days.
Okay, so what are the key contents then? The absolute 10-minute essentials that must be in this bag.
Okay, first and foremost, copies of important documents. This is critical. We're talking photo IDs, driver's license, passport, insurance policies, home, auto, health, birth certificates for everyone in the family, maybe deeds or leases for your property. Store these copies, not originals, unless absolutely necessary, in a waterproof bag or container within your go bag.
Waterproof, good tip. Physical copies.
Physical copies are vital for immediate access when there's no power or internet. Digital backups stored securely online or on a thumb drive are excellent for long-term recovery, but you need physical proof right away sometimes. You'll need these for identification, insurance claims, proving residency at shelters, things like that.
Makes sense. What else?
Second, some cash. Power outages and network failures, they can easily render ATMs and credit card machines completely useless.
Yeah, plastic becomes useless.
Exactly. You might be unable to pay for gas if you're evacuating, or food, or maybe emergency lodging. Having some cash, especially in small denominations, 5s, 10s, 20s, is key for buying necessities. Third, essential medications. And include a copy of your prescriptions if possible. For anyone relying on refrigerated medications, like insulin users we mentioned, having a small, easily transportable supply and maybe a small cooler pack is vital. Also include at least a few days' supply of any daily prescription medications you or your family members need, along with dosages and your doctor's contact info.
Documents, cash, meds.
Yeah.
Okay, what about beyond those absolute basics? Are there any optional but maybe highly recommended items for a slightly more comprehensive go bag?
Oh, absolutely. If you have furry family members, please don't forget them. Include a pet emergency kit.
Right, pets need go bags too.
They do. Include some food, water, a leash or carrier, maybe a favorite toy for comfort, and definitely copies of their vaccination records. It's also really wise to identify pet-friendly evacuation shelters or hotels in advance, as unfortunately, not all shelters accept animals. A basic first aid kit is also highly recommended in your go bag, just for those minor cuts, scrapes, blisters, or other needs that don't require immediate professional medical attention.
Band-aids, antiseptic wipes, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Simple stuff. Also, consider adding a small water filter straw or some water purification tablets. They're incredibly compact and provide an effective backup for emergency water purification, giving you another layer of safety beyond any initial water you might carry. Other smart additions might be a multi-tool, a small whistle for signaling if you get trapped, maybe a backup pair of prescription glasses if you wear them.
It's really compelling to consider the psychological comfort this provides too. I imagine just having this bag ready, sitting by the door, can transform that underlying anxiety into a profound feeling of proactive control.
It truly, truly does. That sense of security is immense, even if it feels small. Knowing that you have these absolute essentials prepared, organized, and ready to go, even if you hopefully never need to use them, it provides a profound peace of mind. It shifts your mindset, doesn't it? From feeling like a potential victim of circumstance to feeling like an empowered individual who is ready to act. It's fundamentally about being prepared for uncertainty, which is a huge part of building resilience. This simple act of just putting together a basic go bag can dramatically reduce the stress of the unknown. It gives you a tangible sense of agency.
Okay, this all ties into a much bigger idea, doesn't it? Cultivating resilience and actively questioning something you mentioned earlier called normacy bias. Let's maybe dive a little deeper into what normalcy bias is and how it really impacts our preparedness or lack thereof.
Yeah, normalcy bias is a really important concept to understand in this context. It's a deeply ingrained psychological tendency that leads people, all of us really, to believe that things will basically continue as they always have. We tend to operate assuming tomorrow will be much like today, even when we're facing clear warnings or mounting evidence to the contrary. As one source we looked at noted, and I think this sums it up well, just because I've lived through a fire or a flood or a hurricane or a tornado, that does not mean that the next time is going to look like the last time. Powerful quote.
Isn't it? This bias, it often prevents individuals and sometimes even public and private sector leaders from taking threats seriously enough. It causes us to underestimate both the likelihood and the potential impact of future disasters. We tend to downplay new risks based on our past experiences, which can be a really dangerous cognitive trap. So we essentially assume that because maybe we survived something similar before, or just because things have always operated a certain way in our town or region, they'll just continue to be that way indefinitely, even when the data, like climate projections or infrastructure reports, suggests otherwise.
Precisely, and this is a critical insight for today. Many experts are increasingly arguing that a lot of these extreme climate or environment-related events, they're no longer truly black swan events.
Black swans meaning totally unpredictable outliers.
Exactly. Those unpredictable things that seem to come out of absolutely nowhere. Instead, these experts argue many extreme events are, in fact, becoming predictable, even if they might be unprecedented in their specific scale or location. The hard truth is the future will simply not be exactly like the past was, and this reality calls for a much greater degree of imagination, foresight, and what some call future scoping to prepare adequately. We can't just keep reacting based on the last disaster. We have to anticipate future possibilities, even uncomfortable ones. It requires us to actively challenge our own normalcy bias.
Okay, now we've talked extensively here about individual and family preparedness, which is the core of the Kaizen plan. But it's probably important to briefly acknowledge that these larger systemic issues are still being addressed, right? They're part of this complex picture, even if they move slowly. What insights do our sources provide on that front?
Yes, that's an important clarification. While personal action is paramount and immediately empowering, it's absolutely true that larger systemic issues are still being worked on, and they will inevitably take significant time to fully resolve. For example, the effort to strengthen the Texas Independent Power Grid, ERCOT. We know it had been warned about its vulnerabilities for decades prior to 2021. Fixing that is an ongoing, massive, complex engineering and regulatory effort.
Right, not a quick fix.
Not at all. And there are even still ongoing lawsuits against ERCOT and various energy companies related to allegations of things like market manipulation during the 2021 storm. It just highlights the incredibly complex interplay of technical, financial, and political factors contributing to disaster impact. These are long, drawn-out processes.
And what about government response capability on a broader scale? Were there key takeaways from the Texas events about systemic challenges there?
Yes, reports definitely highlighted some persistent challenges in government response mechanisms. Things like documented understaffing of key state and local emergency management agencies like HSM and TCOM in Austin were noted. There were also significant issues reported with transportation logistics and access to specialized equipment for first responders during Winter Storm Uri. Think about getting heavy equipment through icy roads. And critical supply chain breakdowns for essential goods like food and water were a major problem.
Yeah, the empty grocery store shelves.
Exactly. The 2021 Winter Storm Uri After Action Review, it made specific recommendations. Things like investing in more resilient water infrastructure, especially for critical facilities like hospitals, developing more comprehensive mass feeding plans for large populations during prolonged outages, and improving communication systems, particularly for reaching vulnerable populations and non-English speakers with timely alerts. These are all massive, crucial, long-term changes, but they simply take time and immense resources to fully implement across the board.
So the takeaway is even with these larger, often slower moving pieces happening in the background, the Kaizen plan, these 5 steps, they truly do put meaningful power back in your hands right now.
It absolutely does. The power of personal and community action in this context really cannot be overstated. It's fundamentally about recognizing that you don't need to wait for perfect government systems or for political debates to end to significantly enhance your own family's safety and well-being. It's about building personal resilience, strengthening your immediate community ties, and focusing squarely on what's within your direct sphere of influence. That focus allows you to gain that invaluable confidence and control. It lets you become an active participant in your family's safety rather than just being a passive observer of these large, often confusing external events.
It's a great way to put it. Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, we have a little challenge for you, our listener. It's quiz time. Today's question is, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, was established under which U.S. president? Think about it. We'll give you the answer at the very end.
And while you're mulling that over, we're genuinely curious to hear from you. Do you already have a go bag ready? Even just a small one with the basics. Type Y for yes or N for no in the comments below. Seriously, there's no judgment here at all. We're all on this journey together, learning and helping each other prepare. Or, hey, if you just enjoyed this deep dive and found it helpful, maybe type okay or just the number 1. We really love hearing your thoughts and knowing we're connecting with you and providing value.
Yeah, your feedback is great. And we're always looking for new ideas for future deep dives. What topics are on your mind? What would you like us to research and explore next? Let us know in the comments.
So, thinking back, in our previous deep dive, we talked quite a bit about finding calm amidst those chaotic news cycles, didn't we?
We did, yeah. Managing the information overload.
Right. Today, we've hopefully moved from just understanding those external forces to taking tangible internal action. We've offered concrete steps you can implement starting today to prepare for the unexpected.
And looking ahead, our next deep dive is going to shift focus slightly, moving towards financial preparedness. We'll be exploring how can you protect your money against things like inflation and other economic shifts. It's definitely another critical area where taking personal action can make a huge difference in your overall resilience and peace of mind.
Absolutely. And don't forget, for a free, comprehensive emergency preparedness checklist that really builds on everything we've discussed today, the audit, the comms plan, the go bag contents, skills fee, please visit kaizen.pw. That's KaiZen.pw. You can download it right there.
Perfect. So remember, everyone, preparedness isn't really about succumbing to fear or anxiety. It's truly about empowerment. It's about gaining confidence, knowing deep down that no matter what the headlines scream, no matter what political games are being played, you've taken proactive, tangible steps to safeguard what matters most, your family's well-being and security.
Well said. And the answer to our quiz question: FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, was established under President Jimmy Carter back in 1979.
President Carter. Got it. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We hope you found it valuable, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.